a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Rani Padmini. Padmini, also known as Padmavati, was a legendary 13th–14th century Indian queen. Several 16th century texts mention her, of which the earliest source is Padmavat, an epic fictionalized poem written by Malik Muhammad Jayasi in 1540 CE. The Jayasi text describes her story as follows: Padmavati was an exceptionally beautiful princess of the Singhal kingdom. Ratan Sen, the Rajput ruler of Chittor Fort, heard about her beauty from a talking parrot named Hiraman. After an adventurous quest, he won her hand in marriage and brought her to Chittor. Alauddin Khalji, the Sultan of Delhi, also heard about her beauty, and laid siege to Chittor. To obtain her, many events occurred during the period of the siege, till the fort was finally taken. Meanwhile, Ratan Sen was killed in a duel with Devpal, the king of Kumbhalner, who was also enamored with Padmavati's beauty. Before Alauddin Khalji could capture Chittor, Padmavati and her companions committed Jauhar to protect their honor. After her sacrifice, the Rajput men died fighting on the battlefield. Many other written and oral tradition versions of her life exist in Hindu and Jain traditions. These versions differ from the Sufi poet Jayasi's version. For example, Rani Padmini's husband Ratan Sen dies fighting the siege of Alauddin Khalji, and thereafter she leads at Jauhar. In these versions, she is characterized as a Hindu Rajput queen, who defended her honor against a Muslim invader. Over the years, she came to be seen as a historical figure, and appeared in several novels, plays, television serials and movies. However, while Khalji's siege of Chittor in 1303 CE is a historical event, many modern historians question the authenticity of the Padmini legends. Versions of the legend. Several 16th century texts survive that offer varying accounts of Rani Padmini's life. Of these, the earliest is the Awadhi language Padmavat of the Sufi composer Malik Muhammad Jayasi, likely composed originally in the Persian script. The 14th century accounts written by Muslim court historians that describe Alauddin Khalji's 1302 CE conquest of Chittorgarh make no mention of this queen. A variety of legends are found in the regional oral tradition from about 1500 or later, remembered and retold in multiple languages, legends which evolved over time. Subsequently, many literary works mentioning her story were produced. These can be divided into four major categories. Between 16th and 19th centuries, at least 12 Persian and Urdu translations, or adaptations of Malik Muhammad Jayasi's Padmavat were produced. More Urdu versions appeared in the 20th century, all adhering to Jayasi's love poetry tradition. In 1589 CE, Hemratan composed Gora Badal Padmini Chaupai, the first Rajput adaptation of the legend, presenting it as a true tale. Between 16th and 18th centuries, more Rajput versions of the Padmavati legend were compiled in present-day Rajasthan, under the patronage of the Rajput chiefs. Unlike Jayasi's theme of courting and marriage, the Rajput adaptations emphasized their honor in defending their kingdom against Alauddin Khalji. During 1829–32, James Todd included a colonial retelling of the legend in his Annals and Antiquities of Rajasthan. His version was based on the information compiled from the oral and textual traditions of writers employed by the Rajput chiefs. From late 19th century onward, several Bengali versions of legend were produced, when James Todd's work reached Calcutta, the capital of British India. These Bengali narratives portrayed Padmavati as a Hindu queen who immolated herself to protect her honor against a Muslim invader. In addition to these various literary accounts, there are numerous narratives of the queen's life in the memories of regional communities, preserved through verbal transmission. The oral legends and the literary accounts share the same characters and general plot, but diverge in the specifics and how they express the details. The oral versions narrate the social group's perspective while the early literary versions narrate the author's court-centric context. According to Ramya Srinivasan, the oral and written legends about Rani Padmini likely fed each other, each version of her life affected by the sensitivities of the audience or the patron, with Muslim versions narrating the conquest of Chittor by Delhi Sultanate under Alauddin Khalji, while the Hindu and Jain versions narrating the local resistance to the Sultan of Delhi exemplified in the life of Padmini. Malik Muhammad Jayasi's Padmavat, 1540 CE. In the Jayasi version, states Ramya Srinivasan, Padmavati is described as the daughter of Gandharv, the king of the island kingdom of Singhal. A parrot tells Chittor's king Ratan Sen of Padmavati and her beauty. Ratan Sen is so moved by the parrot's description that he renounces his kingdom, becomes an ascetic, follows the parrot as the bird leads him across 7 seas to the island kingdom. There he meets Padmavati, overcomes obstacles and risks his life to win her. He succeeds, marries her and brings his wife to Chittor, where he becomes king again. Ratan Sen expels a Brahmin scholar for misconduct, who then reaches Sultan Alauddin and tells him about the beautiful Padmavati. The Sultan lusts for Padmavati and invades Chittor in his quest for her. Ratan Sen, meanwhile, dies in another battle with a rival Rajput ruler. Padmavati immolates herself. Alauddin thus conquers Chittor for the Islamic State. But Alauddin fails in his personal quest. This earliest known literary version is attributed to Jayasi, whose year of birth and death are unclear. He lived during the rule of Babur, the Islamic emperor who started the Mughal Empire after ending the Delhi Sultanate. Jayasi's compositions spread in the Sufi tradition across the Indian subcontinent. Variants derived from Jayasi's work on Padmavati were composed between the 16th and 19th centuries, and these manuscripts exist in the Sufi tradition. In one, Princess Padmavati became close friends with a talking parrot named Hiraman. She and the parrot together studied the Vedas, the Hindu scriptures. Her father resented the parrot's closeness to his daughter, and ordered the bird to be killed. The panicked parrot bade goodbye to the princess, and flew away to save its life. It was trapped by a bird catcher, and sold to a Brahmin. The Brahmin brought it to Chittor, where the local king Ratan Sen purchased it, impressed by its ability to talk. The parrot greatly praised Padmavati's beauty in front of Ratan Sen, who became determined to marry Padmavati. He leaves his kingdom as a Nath yogi, guided by the parrot and accompanied by his 16,000 followers. Ratan Sen reached Singhal after crossing the 7 seas. There, he commenced austerities in a temple to seek Padmavati. Meanwhile, Padmavati came to the temple, informed by the parrot, but quickly returned to her palace without meeting Ratan Sen. Once she reached the palace, she started longing for Ratan Sen. Meanwhile, Ratan Sen realized that he had missed a chance to meet Padmavati. In desolation, he decided to immolate himself, but was interrupted by the deities Shiva and Parvati. On Shiva's advice, Ratan Sen and his followers attacked the royal fortress of Singhal kingdom. They were defeated and imprisoned, while still dressed as ascetics. Just as Ratan Sen was about to be executed, his royal bard revealed to the captors that he was the king of Chittor. Gandharv Sen then married Padmavati to Ratan Sen, and also arranged 16,000 Padmini women of Singhal for the 16,000 men accompanying Ratan Sen. Sometime later, Ratan Sen learned from a messenger bird that his first wife, Nagmati, is longing for him back in Chittor. Ratan Sen decided to return to Chittor with his new wife Padmavati, his 16,000 followers and their 16,000 companions. During the journey, the ocean god punished Ratan Sen for having excessive pride and winning over the world's most beautiful woman, everyone except Ratan Sen. And Padmavati was killed in a storm. Padmavati was marooned on the island of Lakshmi, the daughter of the ocean god. Ratan Sen was rescued by the ocean god. Lakshmi decided to test Ratan Sen's love for Padmavati. She disguised herself as Padmavati and appeared before Ratan Sen. But the king was not fooled. The ocean god and Lakshmi then reunited Ratan Sen with Padmavati and rewarded them with gifts. With these gifts, Ratan Sen arranged a new retinue at Puri and returned to Chittor with Padmavati. At Chittor, a rivalry developed between Ratan Sen's 2 wives, Nagamati and Padmavati. Sometime later, Ratan Sen banished a Brahmin courtier named Raghav Chittan for fraud. Raghav Chittan went to the court of Alauddin Khalji, the Sultan of Delhi, and told him about the exceptionally beautiful Padmavati. Alauddin decided to obtain Padmavati and besieged Chittor. Ratan Sen agreed to offer him tribute, but refused to give away Padmavati. After failing to conquer to the Chittor Fort, Alauddin feigned a peace treaty with Ratan Sen. He deceitfully captured Ratan Sen and took him to Delhi. Padmavati sought help from Ratan Sen's loyal feudatories Gora and Badal, who reached Delhi with their followers, disguised as Padmavati and her female companions. They rescued Ratan Sen at Gora was killed fighting the Delhi forces, while Ratan Sen and Badal reached Chittor safely. Meanwhile, Devpal, the Rajput king of Chittor's neighbour Kumbhalner, had also become infatuated with Padmavati. While Ratan Sen was imprisoned in Delhi, he proposed marriage to Padmavati through an emissary. When Ratan Sen returned to Chittor, he decided to punish Devpal for this insult. In the ensuing single combat, Devpal and Ratan Sen killed each other. Meanwhile, Alauddin invaded Chittor once again, to obtain Padmavati. Facing a certain defeat against Alauddin, Nagamati and Padmavati committed self-immolation on Ratan Sen's funeral pyre. Other women of Chittor also died in mass self-immolation. The men of Chittor fought to death against Alauddin, who acquired nothing but an empty fortress after his victory. Khalji's imperial ambitions are defeated by Ratan Sen and Padmavati, because they refused to submit and instead annihilated themselves. Hemratan's Gora Badal Padmini Chaupai, 1589 CE. Ratan Sen, the Rajput king of Chitrakoot, had a wife named Padmavati, who was a great cook. One day, the king expressed dissatisfaction with the food she had prepared. Padmavati challenged Ratan Sen to find a woman better than her. Ratan Sen angrily set out to find such a woman, accompanied by an attendant. A Nathyogi ascetic told him that there were many Padmini women on the Singhal island. Ratan Sen crossed the sea, with help of another ascetic, and then defeated the king of Singhal in a game of chess. The king of Singhal married his sister Padmini to Ratan Sen, and also gave him a huge dowry which included half of the Singhal kingdom, 4,000 horses, 2,000 elephants and 2,000 companions for Padmini. In Chittor, while Ratan Sen and Padmini were making love, a Brahmin named Raghav Vyas accidentally interrupted them. Fearing Ratan Sen's anger, he escaped to Delhi, where he was received honorably at the court of Alauddin Khalji. When Alauddin learned about the existence of beautiful Padmini women on the island of Singhal, he set out on an expedition to Singhal. However, his soldiers drowned in the sea. Alauddin managed to obtain a tribute from the king of Singhal, but could not obtain any Padmini women. Alauddin learned that the only Padmini woman on the mainland was Padmavati. So, he gathered an army of 2.7 million soldiers, and besieged Chittor. He deceitfully captured Ratan Sen, after having caught a glimpse of Padmini. The frightened nobles of Chittor considered surrendering Padmini to Alauddin. But two brave warriors, Gora and Badal, agreed to defend her and rescue their king. The Rajputs pretended to make arrangements to bring Padmavati to Alauddin's camp, but instead brought warriors concealed in palanquins. The Rajput warriors rescued the king. Gora died fighting Alauddin's army, as Badal escorted the king back to the Chittor Fort. Gora's wife committed self-immolation. In heaven, Gora was rewarded with half of Indra's throne. James Todd's version. The 19th century British writer James Todd compiled a version of the legend in his Annals and Antiquities of Rajasthan. Todd mentioned several manuscripts, inscriptions and persons as his sources for the information compiled in the book. However, he does not name the exact sources that he used to compile the legend of Padmini in particular. He does not mention Malik Muhammad Jayasi's Padmavat, or any other Sufi adaptations of that work among his sources, and seems to have been unaware of these sources. He does mention Kaman Raso in connection with the legend of Padmini, but he seems to have relied more on the local bardic legends along with Hindu and Jain literary accounts. Todd's version of Padmini's life story was a synthesis of multiple sources, and a Jain monk named Gyan Chandra assisted Todd in his research of the primary sources relating to Padmini. According to Todd's version, Padmini was the daughter of Hemratan, the Chauhan ruler of Ceylon. The contemporary ruler of Chittor was a miner named Lakshman Singh. Padmini was married to Lakshman Singh's uncle and regent Maharana Bhim Singh. She was famous for her beauty, and Alauddin besieged Chittor to obtain her. After negotiations, Alauddin restricted his demand to merely seeing Padmini's beauty through a mirror, and do so alone as a symbol of trust. The Rajputs reciprocate the trust and arrange to have Padmini sit in a room at the edge of a water tank. Alauddin gets a fleeting glimpse of her in a mirror in a building at a distance across the water tank. That glimpse inflamed his lust for her. The unsuspecting Rajput king further reciprocates the trust shown by Alauddin by accompanying the Sultan to his camp so that he returns without harm. However, Alauddin had resolved to capture Padmini by treachery. The Sultan took Pimsi hostage when they arrived at the Muslim army camp, and he demanded Padmini in return for Rajput king's release. Padmini plots an ambush with her uncle Gora and his nephew Badal, along with a Jauhar assimilation with other Rajput women. Gora and Badal attempt to rescue Pimsi without surrendering Padmini. They informed Alauddin that Padmini would arrive accompanied by her maids and other female companions. In reality, soldiers of Chittor were placed in palanquins and accompanied by other soldiers disguised as porters. With this scheme, Gora and Badal managed to rescue Pimsi, but a large number of the Chittor soldiers died in the mission. Alauddin then attacked Chittor once again with a larger force. Chittor faced a certain defeat. Padmini and other women die from self-immolation. Pimsi and other men then fought to death, and Alauddin captured the fort. Inscriptions discovered after the publication of James Todd's version suggest that he incorrectly stated Lakshmanasima as the ruler. Instead, according to these inscriptions, Ratnasima was the king when Alauddin attacked Chittor, a character found in other versions of the Rani Padmini-related literature. Further, even though Lakshmanasima placement in 1303 was anachronistic, the evidence confirms that Lakshmanasima succeeded Ratnasima thereafter, and led continued Rajput resistance against successive Muslim attacks of Chittor. Bengali adaptations. Yanyeshwar Bandyopadhyay's vividly describes the Jauhar of Padmini and other women who want to protect their chastity against the wicked Musalmans. Ksharod Prasad Vidya Vinod's play Padmini is based on James Todd's account. The ruler of Chittor is Lakshman China, while Padmini is the wife of the Rajput warrior Bhimsena. Vidya Vinod's story features several subplots, including those about Alauddin's exiled wife Nazaban and Lakshman China's son Aran. Nevertheless, his account of Alauddin and Padmini follows Todd's version with some variations. Alauddin captures Bhimsena using deceit, but Padmini manages to rescue him using the palanquin trick. Another noted warrior Gora is killed in this mission. As the Rajput men fight to death, Padmini and other women immolate themselves. The lineage of Lakshman China survives through Aran's son with a poor forest-dwelling woman named Rukma. Abanindranath Tagore's Raj Kahini is also based on Todd's narrative, and begins with a description of the Rajput history. Bhimsena marries Padmini after a voyage to Singhal, and brings her to Chittor. Alauddin learns about Padmini's beauty from a singing girl, and invades Chittor to obtain her. Bhimsena offers to surrender his wife to Alauddin to protect Chittor, but his fellow Rajputs refuse the offer. They fight and defeat Alauddin. But later, Alauddin captures Bhimsena, and demands Padmini in exchange for his release. Padmini, with support from the Rajput warriors Gora and Badal, rescues her husband using the palanquin trick. Gora dies during this mission. Meanwhile, Timur invades the Delhi Sultanate, and Alauddin is forced to return to Delhi. 13 years later, Alauddin returns to Chittor and besieges the fort. Lakshman China considers submission to Alauddin, but Bhimsena convinces him to fight on for 7 more days. With blessings of the god Shiva, Padmini appears before Lakshman China and his ministers as a goddess, and demands a blood sacrifice from them. The women of Chittor die in mass self-immolation, while the men fight to death. The victorious Alauddin razes all the buildings in Chittor, except Padmini's palace, and then returns to Delhi. Historicity. Alauddin Khalji's siege of Chittor in 1303 CE is a historical event, although this conquest is often narrated through the legend of Padmini wherein Sultan Khalji lusted for the queen. This narration has little historical basis. Amir Khusrau's account. The earliest source to mention the Chittor siege of 1303 CE is Qaza-in-ul Futur by Amir Khusrau, a court poet and panegyrist, who accompanied Alauddin during the campaign. Khusrau makes no mention of any Padmavati or Padmini. Though later translator of Khusrau allegorical works see allusions to Padmini, Amir Khusrau also describes the siege of Chittor in his later romantic composition Devpal Rani Khan, which describes the love between a son of Alauddin and the princess of Gujarat. Again, he makes no mention of Padmini. Some scholars, such as Ashurbanilal Srivastava, Dasharatha Sharma, and Muhammad Habib, have suggested that Amir Khusrau makes a veiled reference to Padmini in Qaza-in-ul Future. Similarly, the historian Sabimal Chandra Datta in 1931 stated that the Khusrau's 14th century poetic eulogy of his patron's conquest of Chittor, there is a mention of a bird hudhud that in later accounts appears as a parrot, and implies Alauddin insisted on the surrender of a woman, possibly Padmini. Other historians, such as Kishori Saran Lal and Kalika Ranjan Kanungo, have questioned the interpretation that Amir Khusrau's reference is about Padmini. According to Datta, a definitive historical interpretation of Khusrau's poetic work is not possible. It is unlikely that Alauddin attacked Chittor because of his lust for Padmini, states Datta, and his reasons were likely political conquest, just like when he attacked other parts of Mewar region. According to Ziauddin Barani, in 1297 CE, a Kotwal officer of Alauddin had told him that he would have to conquer Ranthambore, Chittor, Chandarai, Dar, and Ujjain before he could embark on a world conquest. This, not Padmini, would have prompted Alauddin to launch a campaign against Chittor. In addition, Mewar have given refuge to people who had rebelled or fought against Alauddin. Datta states that there is a mention of Alauddin demanding Padmini during negotiations of surrender, a demand aimed to humiliate the long-defiant Rajput state. Further, Khusrau's account does abruptly mention that Alauddin went into the fort with him, but does not provide any details of why. The Khusrau source then mentions his patron emperor, Crimson in rage, the Rajput king surrendering, then receiving royal mercy, followed by an order of Alauddin that led to 30,000 Hindus being slain in one day, states Datta. The word Padmini or equivalent does not appear in the Khusrau source, but it confirms the siege of Chittor, a brutal war, and the kernel of facts that form the framework of later-era Padmini literature. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?